welcome to Bluejay Chat. I'm your host, Nathan Meyer. Alongside me, as always, Dr. John Sample, and with us this month, Brian Dasher. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So, John, been a little bit, seems like.
The winter has interfered with our schedule.
Yeah, the winter has interfered a lot with our schedule. So, before we get into recognitions and stuff like we normally do here on Bluejay Chat, let's talk about our snow day makeup stuff and everything, because I'm sure parents want to know kind of what's going on with that. There's rumors of what few things that are going on, especially after the middle school got closed down for that extra Friday that 1 week. So
they did, and the middle school was a mess. It was the perfect storm, so to speak, to where it was extremely cold. We had adverse weather conditions, but then also the power went out in the city of Merrill. What that does is it caused parts of our middle school to shut down until the emergency backup generators could kick in. Well, in the meantime, some pipes froze. And so when everything came back on again, we had a few pipes burst, and so we had some water damage at the middle school. What that did was, at that point, at this point currently, we have 6 snow days, or 6 days that we did not count on students being out of the classroom, but that added 1 more to the middle school, so they've been out for 7 days. What we did was we recommended to the board to increase the minutes of instruction per day at 7 minutes per day for the middle school from now until the end of the year, and that gets them caught up with the rest of the district. And so now we're looking at being out for 6 days. What we do is we carefully crunch all of our minutes of instruction. DPI, Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, has a formula, calculation to figure out how to meet the required number of minutes for student instruction. And so once we ran that, our elementary numbers are actually quite good, but anytime you say, okay, the elementary, you get the last 2 days off of school, middle school, high school, you guys come back and you're gonna be the only ones there, it becomes very problematic because, as you know, teachers are contracted for a certain amount of days of instruction. And so the board approved the plan last night to make April 5th, which was a Merrill School Improvement Day, our professional development day, which we do value greatly. That's going to be a student instruction day. We're also going to have to come back to school on Monday, June 10th, and we're going to come back on Tuesday, June 11th. And that's not going to be a half day, it's going to be an early release, because that's what works out favorably with the DPI calculator. So we're adding almost 3 full days, and then we should be fine if there's no other weather conditions. A lot of times the parents will say, well, my child didn't have school on May 5th, just have them come back, or my child didn't have school tomorrow, just have them come back then. We've already got our professional development plans done almost a year in advance, and so tomorrow is our Math Institute training for a lot of our teachers, and we spent tens of thousands of dollars on that because we do value professional development. So it's not that easy. I get where the parents are coming from. My child's already out on this day, let's just have them make it up during the MSI day. Well, we've already planned that, and so we don't want to throw away those dollars. We've already got trainers coming into our district on that day. But I think the nice compromise is going to be to go ahead and have a full day of instruction on April 5th. What this is going to do, though, is our teachers are going to have to do their 4-hour online training that's required by the Department of Justice safety grant. They're going to have to do that on their own time. They're going to have to do the grading on their own time, and they're going to have to take care of their classrooms on their own time. And that's just part of being a professional.
Right. So I know some parents, though, I've talked with other parents that say, oh, we're going to add 10 minutes to middle school. What's a kid going to learn in 10 minutes? Can you kind of help verify with parents that, yes, 10 minutes of extra instructional time is worth it. It is going to help our students, because I could say it till I'm blue in the face, but I don't have a degree like you do. Right,
exactly. It is. It really benefits our students. In fact, it was a couple of years ago that we added 10 minutes to all of our elementary schools. So we extended their day by 10 minutes, and I still get the questions, why did we do that? Well, because the reading curriculum that we have adopted requires fidelity, and to get fidelity, it requires time. And so 10 minutes a day really does add up. As you can imagine, it was just a couple of weeks ago that we added 7 minutes a day for the remainder of the middle school year, and that made up 1 entire day. The 7 minutes 1 minute on lunch, 1 minute on another passing time, and then 5 minutes in the morning. Well, what those students are doing in the morning is RTI time, or they're doing interventions. And so adding 5 minutes really does add a lot. If you think about adding a full day, I can tell you that you go into any classroom on the last day of school throughout the entire United States, and you're going to see not as much instruction taking place as much as you are closure for the students. They're getting ready for summer or summer school, and they're already prepping things out for the following year. And so I do value the minutes of instruction. In fact, we're even looking at possibly revising our board-approved calendar for next year. It would be a recommendation to the board, and the board would have to approve it, to start adding some more time into every building's day, as long as we don't disrupt transportation too greatly.
Right. So that about sums up snow days and stuff. So let's go right into our recognitions. I mean, we recognize a lot of people in the school district for all the good hard work they do.
Yeah.
Let's just jump right into that now, John.
Sure. We had Pam Suhaki. She is a special education teacher at Jefferson. And the really cool thing about Pam is she was a special education aide at the Northern Achievement Center for many years. And she decided that that was her passion. She worked very hard to get her degree and her certification. And so she was recognized by all the outstanding work that she does at Jefferson Elementary. We also recognize Melanie Hagemeister. She was selected as the Elementary Teacher of the Year by the VFW. And that's not just our local VFW, but that consists of 11 counties throughout central Wisconsin. And she was nominated and selected for that award for all of the help that she does with the VFW ceremonies and bringing those into our school and really having our students embrace patriotism. And then also Kim Sample, same last name, she was recognized also by the VFW as the Citizenship Education Award winner. She did her Portraits of Bravery, where veterans that were actually live models for her 5th grade class to paint the portraits. There was a lot of dialogue. They learned a lot about the veterans, and the veterans learned a lot about the kids. In fact, I've had some veterans come up to me at the award ceremony and say, even their wives would say, you know, my husband or my wife really came out of their shell and really enjoyed that experience, and they've got kind of a new outlook on young people. And so that's really, really cool to hear. And anytime we do something like that, it's not just our students that learn, but when the adults learn, that's really great. Vaughn Saunders, he is our psychologist this year, new to the district this year. He received a KTEA 3 training session in which he did for the special ed staff, so he's certified that way. He's doing some fantastic things in our buildings. And then finally, of course, our Merrill dance team. They took 1st place in the region for hip hop, 3rd place in jazz at Wausau East High School. I did get to see that performance, and it was fantastic. So those ladies did a very, very nice job.
Right. Kim's almost got more awards than you do.
If you're keeping track at home, she does.
I'm sure she does.
That's right.
So, and with some of the things that are going on in the district, most of it does include money, obviously. That's
Yes.
why we got our finance guy here, Brian Dasher.
That's right.
So some of the things that we do have to look at, the referendum passed. We talked about that for, seemed like years almost, didn't it?
It seems like it.
How are things going with that, Brian? Just to assure the community that this money is getting spent where it needs to go.
So there were a few aims for the referendum. A big aim was to avoid over almost $1.5 million worth of reductions, $1.5 million worth of reductions, and we had looked at a potential closure of Jefferson and Maple Grove. So that didn't happen this year because the referendum passed. And then the other, probably the secondary primary aim of that referendum was to infuse, not to infuse, but to create a fabrication lab here at the high school. And that's underway. We've got that completed. They've got classroom instruction actually taking place now. I can't remember how many classes they've got running in the Fab Lab currently, but
Sure.
it's complete, it's going, and it's really something to see. If you want to stop by, I think there's a web page out there on the website where you can see some pictures of all the equipment that they purchased. So we basically took a old computer lab that was right next to the Woods lab and remodeled that, and we hired a Fab Lab director with the referendum proceeds, and then purchased almost $300,000 worth of equipment to initially get that up and running. And then we have quite a few donors from the community that are contributing to the Fab Lab, and we've got a lot of interested local businesses that are interested in partnering with us in continuing to develop that going forward. So that will be continued to be supported, and then we're going to be expanding that out into the middle school and elementary over the next coming years, particularly with the maker spaces at the elementary. We've got kind of some initial purchases that we made this year to get a kind of a basic setup for the maker spaces, and then we're looking at expanding that for next year. And then the third kind of aim for the referendum was to address some facilities maintenance issues. So what we did there is we did what's called a non-referendum debt issuance. So districts can borrow up to $1 million without going to referendum, but it's under the revenue limit, the payments on the debt. Normally, what a lot of districts will do is they'll go out to referendum to issue debt, and then that allows them to levy an additional amount to pay the debt back. What we did is we borrowed $1 million up to our maximum limit, and then we're going to use referendum proceeds over the next 4 years to pay that $1 million back. And so what that allows us to do is tackle some big ticket projects that needed to be done right away. Probably our biggest one that needs to be addressed is the pool at the middle school. That needed a significant amount of work, several $100,000 worth of work, and so that will be completed this year through the proceeds of that borrowing. And then there'll be several other roofing projects and other things taking place over the next 6 months prior to the end of the year. And then the referendum proceeds then will pay back that debt. So it's not additional money on top. It's basically we borrowed against the referendum in sort of to speak, so that we could do all these projects up front all at once and gain some competitive pricing instead of spreading these out into smaller projects throughout the course of the 4 years. We can do them all together and realize kind of an economy of scale with the pricing, and avoid construction inflation over the next 4 years as well.
Also probably avoid too anything else major breaking on it, like a roof collapsing or something like that. If you maintain it now, John,
Right.
most likely it's just not going to collapse on
Sure.
your biggest investment, which is our students. So
It is, and we want to get to those projects before that. We want to be proactive rather than reactive, and Dale has a huge inventory of projects. Him and his team are on top of things. He knows the condition of everything in this entire district, and I've said it before, we don't measure the properties in our district necessarily. We could measure them by square miles, really. When you're talking about parking lots, buildings, the roofs, you take an aerial view and put all of our buildings together, and it really is quite a challenge to maintain our facilities. And so people can always compare a school budget with their household budget. Well, imagine if you had this many thousands of square feet of building space, and it's a job and it's a responsibility, and it's one that he takes very seriously.
right. So with some of the projects that they do have, I know the high school emergency egress lighting. Explain what that is, because I'm sure there's some people out there that have no clue exactly what that is.
So basically, there's it's safety lighting that stays on in the hallways 24 hours a day. And what we're doing there, those are standard fluorescent bulbs, high energy usage. The LED lighting that we're going to be replacing that with is much more efficient. LED bulbs use a lot less energy, they run cooler, and they don't need to be replaced as often. So that project will have a little bit of a payback over the years. But basically that's to, since that's a 24-hour thing that we run for safety purposes, safety and security, that can be an energy hog, and so these LED lightings will be much more efficient over the lifespan of them.
And everything's going LED now, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it is, and that's one of the things that hasn't changed since I was a kid, is the lighting that we've had, and there's been a lot of studies that says this is not the best thing for learning, it's not the best thing for our eyes, but it's the most economical when you're talking about that many lights. And so this is one of those proactive projects I think is going to really save us some energy in the long run.
Right, and it's not like they're the ones, these LED lights that we're putting in, it's not like they're the ones that the kids are learning like under anyway.
For these, right.
We're still going to have our normal bulbs that, just studies have shown they're going to learn better from. These are just the, hey, everyone's supposed to be gone, but just in case someone's in the building.
Yep, strictly for safety.
Yep. So, we got anything else, John? It's been so long with all these snow days and stuff.
It really has been. One thing I had mentioned, the Northern Achievement Center, that is a Season 9 program. That's for students whose needs are so great, typically emotionally and behaviorally, that they're not going to function within their own district classrooms, and it's open for all the Season 9 districts. We get students from Mosinee, Wausau, sometimes DC Everest, Tomahawk, and then of course our own students. And so that program is located just south of central office, just south of the high school. And what we did is we kind of cut out the middleman. Karen Baker, our director of special ed, crunched some numbers. This was a program that I had started because we had some needs, and the program was going to go away. It used to be housed in Rhinelander. So it was about 9 years ago that I said, we've got a space now at the old Head Start. We can do that program, and it's worked for many years. But as we started figuring out costs, if we cut out CSID 9 and absorb that program and those employees as our own, we could save initially about $50,000 of administrative costs, which we were paying to CSID 9 so that they could evaluate those staff, they could oversee the program. I know that when I was director of special ed, I spent a lot of time there because of proximity. Karen spending a lot of time there, so it just made sense that for this next year to go ahead and make that our own, make the 2 teachers and the 4 aides ours. We will have to, of course, post those positions and interview the best. The 6 staff members that we have right now have been fantastic, and I have every indication to say that they're going to apply for those jobs, and we'll select the best candidates out of that. So I see a very smooth transition, and we'll be able to still continue to meet the needs of our own students, and we can make contracted arrangements with other districts in the area that if they want to send their children to the program, then that comes back to help offset the costs that Karen Baker is putting into the program. That's not out of the general fund, that's completely out of federal flow-through dollars for special ed budget. And so I think that's a move in the right direction. We also hired a special education aide for Pine River School for Young Learners. The needs were starting to become great over there, and so that's just for the remainder of this year, and then every year, poses new challenges, and we'll see what we have for next year, but that's just going to cover us for this year.
I see there's also an additional special education aid for the Prairie River Middle School. Just the aides are so helpful in this district right now that we almost can't have enough of them, it seems like.
Yeah, there are times, especially when it comes down to safety. I know when I first started, there was kind of a misconception that says if a student's IEP requires an aide, and this student's IEP requires an aide, and this student's IEP requires an aide, that we need 3 aides. we've gotten away from that. We can have one aide and still work with those 3 students. We don't need one-to-one aides everywhere, but they provide such a valuable service. They help with the safety of that child, meeting their social, emotional needs, as well as helping them academically. And so Ryan Martinovich and Mark Seaman did a nice job. We had a long-term sub in there for quite some time just to make sure that we truly needed that position, because we take it very seriously. If we have to hire an additional teacher or an additional aide, we want to make sure that we do our studies, that it's a needed position. And so Ryan filled that need with a long-term sub. He didn't see that need going away, and so the board approved an additional aide at the middle school. So we're very happy about that, and we greatly value the services they provide.
Perfect. And one last thing, we did get a donation that was huge to the Fab Lab.
To the Fab Lab,
from
yes.
Sierra Pacific. Talk a little bit about that from both of your guys' perspective.
Josh Zalewski is so in touch with the community, and it's like, I treat the Fab Lab as almost a miniature version of Jay Stadium. Jay Stadium, when it came to athletics and activities and a source of pride for the community, we had a lot of major donations, of course the Bierman Foundation being the greatest one. And now we've got the Fab Lab, which is really speaking to the needs of our area manufacturers. And so Sierra Pacific just donated $5,000, and I don't see the support for the Fab Lab going away anytime soon. Josh has done a wonderful job. I think we planned this one out correctly by hiring him as the director, giving him that first semester to get the Fab Lab first of all set up. But he also knew that that first semester was going to be, you're going to replace the time that you would normally have with students to be reaching out to the community. And so he's taken the tours, he's had people in the Fab Lab. I can't say enough about all of our tech ed teachers, the tech ed program, and especially that Fab Lab. I'm impressed, and if he opens it up for evening classes, I'll be the first student to enroll.
Brian, that $5,000 does go a long way in that Fab Lab area, right?
Yeah, that'll contribute a lot to our ongoing expenditures. There's not only is there all the equipment that has to be purchased, but then there's ongoing supplies and just all the materials that they have to work with that needs to be replenished all the time. And so every little bit helps, and that's a great amount to help us out with for this year with all the extra expenses and just replacing the supplies, and so we're excited about that, and we're excited about the support that we've got from the community on this.
Yeah, I don't think we really have anything else, John. We're just rolling around here in February, trying to get to a warmer time.
Boys basketball, we'll find out more tonight.
Boys basketball, they beat Spash earlier this week.
Yeah, good game.
Girls, I think, are done now, aren't they? Or
I think their season is done.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know hockey, I think, was done too. We can talk a little bit about the hockey program. They just got approval for the co-op to continue with Wausau East, which has been a very successful partnership.
And it's going to be a 3-district partnership, because Wausau Newman was approved to have 2 of their hockey players join the co-op. So I don't know what the name is going to be. It could be a 3-part name instead of just the Blue Jacks. But anytime if you've got 2 students attending your high school and you don't have a hockey program, I think it's a great thing all the way around. Those kids get to play. They're going to be welcomed by East and by Merrill, and so that was a good thing. So that got approved last night as well.
Yep, and Coach Chris Marlowe has done a fantastic job with those kids too.
He really has. He really has, and that's his passion.
Yep. So, yeah, I don't think we really have anything else. I mean, it's just another snowy, cold day in Wisconsin.
You wait. By May, we'll forget all about this winter.
You're right. We'll be worried about the heat strokes we'll get. Do you have anything else for us, Brian, or?
No.
No.
I think we're good.
I think we're all good. Well, for Dr. John Sample, for Brian Dasher, thank you for joining Bluejay Chat. Go Blue Jays.